SPS Baey Yam Keng.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank members for the support of the bill. They have also raised issues on EV charger regulation and other EV-related topics, which are important as EVs become increasingly common. To clarify, for the purposes of this bill, the definition of EV includes battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles, but excludes other types of hybrid vehicles that cannot be recharged by plugging in an external source of electrical power. First, on electrical safety. Safety must be of priority in all aspects of EV use and charging. That is why we abide by stringent safety standards. For example, LTA mandates that the electric powertrain of EVs must meet requirements in the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe regulations. I would like to assure Mr. Shara Taha that we have strict laws to enforce against illegal modifications, which are detected either through on-the-road enforcement or periodic vehicle inspections. For software that governs EV performance, such as motor power, output, and batteries, we will need to work with EV manufacturers to explore ways to guard against illegal modifications. EV charging systems are governed by Technical Reference 25 or TR25, which is based on global standards set by organizations like the International Electrotechnical Commission. TR25 is tailored to our warm and humid weather conditions and guards against safety hazards like overheating or electrocution. Every review of TR25 is a consultative process involving industry stakeholders, academics, and government agencies. This ensures that TR25 supports innovation in EV charging technology while ensuring public safety. Licensed electrical workers are required to ensure and only install EV chargers that are TR25 compliant. It is an offense under the Electricity Act to tamper with electrical installations which include fixed EV chargers. Mr. Satyani Supat can be assured that these requirements will remain in place regardless of the agency in charge of regulating EV chargers. Second, on incentives for electric motorcycles, Mr. Louis Ng asked about the ministry's plans to promote adoption of electric motorcycles. As he pointed out, there are some barriers to electric motorcycle adoption today that are beyond our control. Globally, there are not many electric motorcycle models compared to electric cars. Many motorcycle dealers and distributors have also not adjusted to the electric motorcycle market yet. Therefore, we have not included motorcycles in our 2030 cleaner energy target on new registrations at the moment. As the global market for electric motorcycles matures, we should see more offerings for consumers. We will continue to monitor such trends and consider suitable measures to encourage adoption if necessary. At the same time, we will look into providing for the charging needs of vehicles like electric motorcycles and goods vehicles as part of our charger deployment plans. We will also not rule out battery swapping for motorcycles. Third, on available grid capacity to support EVs. EMA and LTA are working with local researchers to study the long-term electrical infrastructure needs for EV charging in Singapore. Preliminary findings show that we may require some upgrades at various levels, including the consumer intake substations, the distribution grid network, as well as power generation. The Minister for Transport earlier mentioned that if our light vehicles switch to EVs, and most EV owners charge around the same time of the day, we may need to add 1 or 2 new 600 megawatt electricity generating units in our power generation system. These amounts to around 8% to 16% of the current overall peak electricity demand in Singapore. The required upgrades will be implemented over the next 2 decades as we survey our grid and gather insights on charging behavior. Agencies plan upgrades by catering for capacity buffer to ensure against unanticipated consumption growth. This will ensure that the electricity grid remains stable, as substations are unlikely to exceed capacity due to EV charging. Fourth, on charger deployment. We have announced our plan to roll out 40,000 charging points at our public car parks by 2030. This is a major undertaking which will necessarily involve some electrical infrastructure upgrades. And LTA has launched a request for information to consult industry on how best to structure private sector involvement in the funding of these upgrades. Input from this exercise will also inform the design and use of car park lots for charging, including issues that Mr. Dennis Tan had mentioned. As Mr. Satyani Supat and Ms. Janet Ang pointed out, agencies would need to work closely together on the National Charger Deployment Plan. We already see this close collaboration among agencies in the pilot charging point tender issued in November 2020, covering multiple car parks owned by different agencies. Another example, as mentioned by Mr. Sharia Taha, is how LTA is working with HDB to incorporate EV charging demand into the upgrading of substations in older estates under HDB's electrical load upgrading program. Going forward, the National EV Centre under LTA will coordinate and drive close collaboration among agencies including ERA, EMA and HDB to deploy chargers. We will also explore supporting regulations on data use, which Ms. Mariam Jaafar has suggested. I'm glad that Mr. Louis Ng and Ms. Janet Ang raised the role of private development owners in the deployment of EV charging points. And that includes Mr. Dennis Tan as well. Indeed, we target 20,000 charging points to be deployed at private premises by 2030. To kick this off, we will launch the EV Common Charger Grant in July to defray charger installation costs in non-landed private residences such as condominiums. We will need to engage stakeholders such as MCSTs, managing agents, and charging operators to see if we can do more. But more importantly, the economics must work. Users must find it more worthwhile to drive an EV compared to an internal combustion engine vehicle so that vendors will enter the market. Fifth, on charger availability. Beyond charger deployment, the issue of charging anxiety raised by Ms. Ng Ling Ling can be addressed by maximizing access to chargers as far as possible through a mix of smart charging solutions and advanced booking features. To respond to Mr. Gan Thiam Poh, our charger deployment tenders will also incorporate innovations in charging technology where feasible. More importantly, as Ms. Janet Ang rightly pointed out, developing good social norms is also essential to discourage behavior like lot hogging by cars that do not need charging. As Mr. Dennis Tan mentioned, there are pricing schemes to discourage such behavior, such as time-based pricing for an EV that is already fully charged. We agree with Ms. Yeo Wan Ling that point-to-point transport or P2P drivers have specific charging needs which need to be met as they transit to EVs. We are working closely with P2P transport operators to facilitate their efforts to develop charging infrastructure for their fleets. P2P drivers can also tap on the growing network of fast chargers island-wide. 6. On the disposal and recycling of used EV batteries, an issue that Mr. Leon Pereira raised. From July this year, the National Environment Agency, or NEA, will implement an extended producer responsibility, or EPR scheme, to ensure the proper treatment and recycling of regulated electrical and electronic waste. This includes EV batteries. Under the scheme, producers of EV batteries are responsible for the proper treatment of the batteries when they reach end of life. NEA has also appointed an operator to collect consumer EV batteries on behalf of the producers. All collected EV batteries are to be sent for proper treatment with licensed e-waste recyclers. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm heartened that members are enthusiastic about the benefits of EVs and greener modes of transport in general, like public transport and cycling. Some of these ideas are beyond the scope of this bill. Today's bill to assign LTA statutory functions on EV and EV infrastructure is a strong commitment to the transition to cleaner energy vehicles. But it is only the first step. Building on this, we will introduce further legislation in due course, such as the registration of EV chargers and charger provision requirement for new buildings. Nevertheless, we will study and, where possible, incorporate the many useful ideas and also address the concerns raised by members today. Madam Deputy Speaker, it is important to build a healthy and vibrant EV ecosystem in Singapore. The government will do this in partnership with industry and public stakeholders. In particular, echoing what Ms. Janet Ang said, there is much economic value offered by the EV industry. We are working with the relevant economic agencies to anchor high-value R&D activities and develop related industries, such as charging systems and automotive manufacturing, to establish an EV ecosystem. As highlighted by Mr. Sharataha, our workforce, especially our technicians and mechanics, would need to be equipped with the necessary skills to transit into future job opportunities. We are working closely with a wide variety of stakeholders on this: unions, trade associations, companies, institutes of higher learning, and skills development agencies. Through our combined efforts, I look forward to making a safe transition to EVs and a greener, more sustainable living environment. Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move.
The question is that the bill be now read. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many as are of the opinion, say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Land Transport Authority of Singapore Amendment Bill.
Committee stage what day?
Now, Madam, I beg to move that Parliament will immediately resolve itself into committee on the bill.
The question is that Parliament would immediately resolve itself into a committee on the bill. As many as are of the opinion, say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that clauses 1 to 3 stand part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Bill to be reported. Minister for Transport.
Madam, I beg to report that the bill has been considered in committee and agreed to without amendment.
Third reading, what day?
Now, Madam, I beg to move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the bill be now read a third time. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Land Transport Authority of Singapore Amendment Bill.